Hey everyone, Dave here, video maker, shit taker. I've been threatening to release a draft guide for a while now, and here we are, sneaking it in just before the deadline with the draft only a few days away. I'll be splitting this into two sections. The first section covers round one with detailed player profiles split up into tier rankings. The second section covers the players outside the first round, grouped into their positions, midfielders, key forwards, etc., and ranked, as it's my belief that outside of the first round, teams tend to draft much more for positional needs, so as a supporter you'll probably be more interested in knowing who the best key forwards are if that's a roster need. Alright, let's get into it. Section 1, starting off with my tier 1 prospects. I have 4 players in this first tier: Sid Draper, Jagger Smith, Finn O'Sullivan, and Levi Ashcroft. I have ranked them, but it's my belief that all the players in this tier are so close that it's not a mistake to draft any one of them over another. With these player profiles, I'm going to split them up into 3 sections. I'm going to give a brief description of how their season has gone. I'm going to give a brief description of the type of game that they have, their traits, strengths, weaknesses, etc. And then a third section on their draft day prospects. So let's kick this off with Sid Draper. The first of many injury-affected players in this draft pool, Sid unfortunately developed stress fractures in his shin in pre-season and had to sit out the first couple of months of the campaign. He returned a couple of weeks before the champs, enough to have a bit of a warm-up, and overall put in a pretty decent champs showing, but it was clear that his lack of conditioning and match practice was limiting him. He got better as the champs series progressed, but once the champs were done, he returned to the South Adelaide Panthers, and that's where he really started to hit top form. There have been a few of the top guys that have played State League footy this year, VFL, Sandful, Waffle, but none of them have been quite as impressive as Sid was in the back half of the season. He transformed his Panthers team that were wallowing at the bottom of the Sandful League table before he arrived and helped them to a series of wins and immediately became their best player. So how does Sid play? Well, he's a dynamic midfielder who can win his own footy at the contest and damage with elite bursts of speed, power and agility. Loves to run at the opposition, draw opponents to him and then break through the lines and zones with linking overlapping handball. His kicking lacks penetration at times and gets loopy when he goes for distance, but is solid over short to medium distances. So what can Sid expect on draft day? This is where you have to kind of decide how much you want to read into his injury issues. What would Sid have been capable of at the champs and through the course of the season if he'd been able to build his tank in pre-season and work on some of the deficiencies in his game? The way he managed to power through and overcome adversity franks his reputation as a driven and professional young man. In this tier 1 group of players I struggle to separate them, but if forced to pick I'd take Sid for a few reasons. He has less risk than Finn O'Sullivan given his stellar performances over the last 2 seasons against elite competition, and his elite burst of speed and agility gives him a dynamic point of difference when compared to Jagger or Levi. Jagger Smith. How did his season go? Well, Jagger's had a brilliant personal season, playing elite footy at every level. Champs, Academy, Talent League, and even a really nice 3-game stint in the VFL for Richmond. Nobody in the draft pool has found more footy in 2024 than Jagger. How does he play? Well, Jagger combines 2 elite strengths in the one package. Firstly, he's an elite accumulator on the outside, using his endurance and drive to get from contest to contest, and his footy IQ to know precisely where to move to make himself available for his teammates. Secondly, he's the best clearance player at stoppage in the draft pool, with elite craft and the ability to deal damage with those first touch possessions, using his mazy run to navigate from inside to outside the contest, finding pockets of space, with his head up looking for the right option. The 2 main criticisms have been his lack of defensive pressure at times this season, and that he's tended to take the safer rather than the more attacking option with his disposal, although he has seemed to improve in that second area as the season's progressed. What can we expect for Jagger on draft day? Well, he is the most risk-free certainty that you're going to get in this pool. Minor concerns over his slight frame aside. It would seem a mistake to me if he fell outside of the top 5. Finn O'Sullivan. It's been a frustratingly injury-interrupted and impacted season for those of us that wanted to see what Finn would be capable of at full capacity, and I can only imagine it's been even more frustrating for Finn himself. A thumb injury in the opening quarter of the first game of the season had him miss a month and a half of footy, and then another hand injury had him miss even more time, returning halfway through the Champs Series, seriously underdone and limiting his on-field output. In the back half of the season he suffered even more injuries with a niggling hip complaint to stand out. So how does he play? He's a dynamic athlete who's powerful in the air and excellent at ground level. quick and agile with elite evasion. He has a penetrating kick and the ability to make the footy talk with creative touches. Super versatile, capable of playing through the midfield or as a dangerous forward. On draft day, Finn entered the year as the pick one favourite, and he may well be the most talented player in the draft pool, but it's difficult to ignore the risk that he represents. He holds his place in the Tier 1 group on the back of what he might become, but others have shown a lot more than he has this season, and as such represent more certainty. Of the top four, Finn is probably the one most likely to slide. Levi Ashcroft. He's had a brilliant season full of personal and team success. He secured his third straight flag with the Dragons, won the champs with Metro, became a dual All-Australian, a dual Sandringham Dragons best and fairest winner, the list goes on. And perhaps more importantly than anything, injury-free, or at least relatively so. He had some issues with his shoulder that he had surgery on post-season, but he was able to overcome that to play consistently excellent football all season long, at every level, including one brilliant best-on-ground outing in the VFL for the Lions. Levi's a prolific and clever midfielder and occasional forward. Shorter and thicker than some of the other types at the top end of the pool, he lacks the burst of Sid Draper or the mazy evasiveness of Jagger, but his low centre of gravity and strength allow him to shrug or stand up in tackles, and his immense footy IQ allows him to work the angles to find space and time. On the outside, he's a more penetrating kick than Sid or Jagger, and has shown a consistent ability to kick goals from midfield or resting forward, which is a point of difference in his game. On draft day, well, Levi's going to end up at the Lions, of course. It's only a matter of where the bid comes. Later than pick 7 would be a surprise. Alright, Tier 1.5. I'm being a little bit self-indulgent by including a Tier 1.5 as I see these guys only a very small step behind the top group in my mind. Sam Lalor. Another of the severely injury-affected contingent. Lalor started the year on the sidelines with a hip injury, returned for the second academy game before again being sidelined with more injury niggles. He returned midway through the champs, severely underdone, which resulted in some less than stellar performances. Put together a couple of elite talent league performances and showed tantalising glimpses of what he might be capable of before ultimately copping a bad hamstring injury which ended his season and saw him miss the combine testing. So he plays as a powerful, dynamic and versatile mid-forward in the mould of a Dustin Martin or Jordan De Goey. As a forward, he's strong overhead and athletic enough to crash a pack, has the craft and pace to create separation on the lead, and more than capable at ground level. In the midfield, he's powerful, strong and combative, plays with a physical edge, loves to lay a tackle, capable of winning the footy at stoppage and very difficult to bring down. He has a penetrating kick and can lace out targets when he's on. One thing that's underrated with Lalor is his balance. Always seems to land with cat-like grace, ready to push off in either direction. So what can we expect on draft day? Well, the sole reason Lalor isn't in the Tier 1 group for me is the greater risk he represents as a prospect. He's played cricket at a high level and so typically hasn't done a lot of footy pre-season training, and importantly hasn't undergone any standard athletic tests to my knowledge. His hamstring injury also meant that he wasn't available to test at the combine. So as far as I'm aware, we have no data on his 20-metre sprint, agility, yo-yo tests, etc. On top of that, he's only played a couple of games this year at close to full capacity, so we only have hints at his potential. Now you can call me conservative, but that represents just a little more risk than I'm entirely comfortable with, hence his rating in the Tier 1.5 group. But the hot rumour, of course, is that he'll be Richmond's pick for number 1. Leo Lombard. No top-end player has been flying under the radar quite as much as Leo Lombard. He's put together a quietly brilliant body of work this year that seems to be underappreciated by many. At VFL level for the Suns, he's had a handful of outstanding games among a few quieter performances. He showed moments of brilliance for the academy before dominating at champs level for the Allies, taking home the Lark medal for his troubles. He capped things off with one of the all-time great national combine performances, posting some of the best sprint and agility times we've ever seen. Lombard is the outstanding athlete in this draft pool and it shows in his game. He's a rapid and powerful mover, able to go from standstill to top speed in the blink of an eye. He uses his elite agility to jink and move, sidestep around would-be tacklers. He's played a number of roles, but most commonly midfield and forward. As a midfielder, he's able to win the footy at stoppage and use those elite athletic traits to burst away from congestion and initiate damaging, attacking moves. As a forward, his evasiveness and ground level skills make him a dangerous prospect capable of turning contests into scoring opportunities for himself or his team. At his best, Leo plays with an audacity and confidence that allows him to make magic happen on the footy field. So his draft prospects, well, Of course he'll end up at Gold Coast, it's just a matter of where the bid will come. I've seen some listing him outside the top 10. That's an outrage for me. Lombard is one of the elite talents in this draft and must be bid on inside the top 10. Josh Smiley had a brilliant start to the season at Talent League level, regularly racking up 30 plus disposals and kicking goals. Had a very strong 2-game series for the AFL Academy, and at that stage was seen as the consensus pick 1 favourite. Things started to take a turn during the Champ Series as he didn't dominate in the way that many expected, even though he was still solid and helped Metro to the title. He had an interesting and variable second half of the year, seeing his draft stocks continue to slide. Smiley is a midfielder with a massive 195cm frame, and is extremely light on his feet and agile for a guy his size. He's the second best clearance player in the draft behind only Jagger Smith, able to use his size and agility to navigate traffic to get clear for a damaging disposal. He possesses a penetrating, low trajectory kick, which gets to his targets rapidly. He's quite capable in the forward line, able to get out on the lead or create scoring opportunities at ground level. His regular scoreboard impact from midfield or forward is a point of difference. Considering his height, he's not as strong overhead as you might expect, and this manifests more when playing forward, where he can struggle to impact in the air. Although when matched up on smaller midfielders, he does represent a solid marking target around the ground. He's not as intensely combative in the middle as other large-framed mids like Paddy Cripps or Tom Green. His kicking has been variable this season. When he's hitting them well, it's a weapon, but he seems to get lazy with his ball drop and his decision-making at times. So what can we expect on draft day? Well, he has too many elite traits to fall too far. I expect some team inside the top 10 will be fascinated by his potential and will pull the trigger. Tier 2. First up, Murphy Reid. Murphy kept on building into his year, his performances continually improving over the journey. He really started to make people stand up and take notice during his Champ Series, where he took home MVP honours for the title-winning Vic Metro. He took confidence from that into the second half of the season, putting together some prolific high-possession games, ramping up the hurt factor and regularly hitting the scoreboard in helping his Dragons team to the Talent League flag. Murphy is class and poise personified. Has the classic Pendlebury-esque trait of always being able to find space and time in congestion. He plays with his head up, displaying fantastic vision and the ability to hit targets with creative disposal over short and medium distances. Over the course of the season, he became increasingly capable of putting together huge disposal games, demonstrating a strong tank and a high footy IQ. He improved his stoppage craft over the course of the season, becoming solid in that area if not quite prolific. There are concerns around Murphy's size and lack of elite athletic profile, which might limit his ability to play midfield at AFL level. While he showed some signs of improvement late in the year, his application to applying pressure this season hasn't always been there. He's an elite kick of the footy over short and medium distances, but his kicking does seem to lack penetration at times, and he rarely seems to overextend himself to try for distance. On draft day, Murphy's potential draft range is probably larger than most given the distance between his elite output and the concerns around his athletic profile. If there's a team that admires what he brings to the table inside the top 10, then he could well go quite early, but there's a decent chance of a slide down the order into the mid-teens. Xavier Lindsay. A strong and consistent season for Xavier that didn't quite result in the team success that he would have liked, but did net him a number of individual honours along the way, such as taking out the Morrish Medal for Player of the Season in the Talent League and being named All-Australian at the Champs for his Vic Country performances. Lindsay is a consistent performer that's above average at most aspects of the game, which allows him to excel in a number of roles on field. He's super clean at ground level and has the agility to evade tacklers and find space, but his most outstanding trait is probably his disposal by hand and foot. His kicking in particular is a weapon when paired with his quick and decisive decision-making, allowing him to take on something of a quarterback role at times for his teams. An underappreciated element to his game is his on-field leadership and competitiveness, allowing him to lift himself when things are tough or when the level goes up and inspire his teammates to lift as well. Draft prospects, well, Lindsay hasn't quite had the big wow moments that most of the other top 10 contenders have had this season, which probably has him flying slightly under the radar, but he represents the kind of no-risk, consistently solid prospect that's unlikely to slide too far on draft night. Harvey Langford. Langford's been one of the most consistently outstanding performers for the 2024 season across the Talent League and Champs competitions. He formed a formidable combination at the Stingrays with his running partner, Cooper Hines, the two of them consistently racking up incredible disposal numbers and kicking goals while driving their team deep into the finals. His own personal season highlight would have to be taking out the Lark Medal for a brilliant Champs Series for Vic Country. So his game, well, he's a combo mid-forward who's thrived all season in both roles. 191cm tall with a big strong body and a good tank. Powerful in the air, able to impose himself on marking contests and brave enough to launch at packs. He's also strong below his knees and when playing forward regularly takes marks out on the lead, making him a dangerous and damaging medium forward. In the midfield, he's able to regularly get first hands on the footy at stoppage, where he uses his frame like a bulldozer. When he's able to get out into space, he can really motor, and has a long, penetrating, low-trajectory left foot kick which he uses regularly lace out targets inside 50. On the downside, he lacks acceleration and agility, which was reinforced with a poor showing at the Combine. This shows in his stoppage work, where he can struggle to find space for a damaging disposal, often needing to dispose of the ball quickly under pressure. While his kicking can be excellent at times, he seems to have a slightly awkward action, which can lead to a higher percentage of clangers than you'd like. Draft prospects. Well, similar to Murphy Reed, Langford seems to be a polarising figure. Some see his elite traits and project him as the next Bont, where others see his athletic limitations and worry that he won't be able to play as a midfielder at AFL level. With such a wide spread of valuations, Langford could land anywhere from the top 3 down into the teens. Taj Houghton. Yet another whose season was massively disrupted, this time by a ruptured ACL that required a full reconstruction. He started the season on fire, racking up big possession totals and kicking goals in the Talent League before an exciting performance in the first academy game after a late call-up. Taj is yet another combo mid-forward, although Taj leans more forward than mid. A tough cover for any defender, his tank allows him to roam up the ground from the forward line, getting involved in play around the wings before losing his man in traffic on the way back. He's an elite athlete with pace and agility to burn, which lets him make the most of 50-50 opportunities. Capable of crumbing or taking marks on the lead. As a midfielder, he's not the most prolific clearance player, but his agility and pace allows him to do damage on the spread. His traits and athleticism could allow him to adapt to a wing or a halfback role. His draft prospects, well, he's an intriguing talent given his stellar play through the first 2 months of the season, which suggested he might be pushing up well inside the top 10 before his injury. Seems a likely slider now given the uncertainty around his recovery and the relatively little top-level football we got to see from him before he went down. Luke Traynor. Another with injury concerns, this time late in the season. Early in the year he was seen as one of the bolters, turning in a series of exciting performances for the Dragons and then 2 excellent outings for the academy team. His Champ Series was solid as the mainstay tall defender for the title-winning Vic Metro side. He unfortunately ended the season under an injury cloud, missing games due to concussion. When given the freedom to play his own way, he plays an interestingly modern intercepting defender role, where he backs his IQ and reading of the play to zone way off his man, and either set up down the line a kick away from play, a la Tom Stewart, or pushing right up to play as an extra midfielder at times. He's rarely beaten at ground level, where he's both competitive and clean, and he possesses a long, penetrating and constructive kick with solid decision making. At 194cm he has the height to be a key back, but he's not as strong in the air as you'd ideally like for that role. His intercept possessions tend to come more from his superior reading of the play rather than winning 1v1 aerial contests, suggesting that perhaps his best role at AFL level will be as a third tall. For draft day, I really can't pick this one. After being a top 5 fancy for a chunk of the season, he seems to have slid down the order in the eyes of many on the back of his concussion concerns. Without having access to Traynor's medical reports, I don't feel I'm in any position to judge the validity of those concerns or where that may leave his prospects. Tier 3. First up, Isaac Kako. A solid and consistent season for Kako, who gradually cemented his position as the premier small forward prospect in the talent pool. At Talent League level, he started the season playing almost exclusively deep forward, and excited with his ability to crumb cleanly and produce moments of magic around goals, a role which he reprised for Vic Metro to similar success, winning all Australian honours at the Champs. As the season progressed, he moved increasingly into the midfield, where he provided creativity and drive for Calder, before his season was cut short with a syndesmosis ankle injury prior to the finals, although this didn't prevent him from being named in the Talent League team of the season. While he moved up the ground and played midfield to some success during the season, Kako seems tailor-made to be a small forward at AFL level. While not at the same elite pace as someone like a Leo Lombard, he's still quick and agile with a decisive dynamism to the way he plays that makes you feel as though he could do something magical at any moment. He's a born entertainer. He can kick goals in a variety of ways, adept at crumbing off packs, swooping on loose balls, or finding pockets of space to take marks on the lead. His kicking over short and medium distances is solid, and his vision is fantastic, as demonstrated by him leading the Talent League in direct goal assists for the season. Outside of 40 metres, things become a bit more of a struggle for him. He tends to put more body motion into his kicking form and loses direction on the ball. Draft day prospects. He's linked to Essendon via the NGA program, and Essendon have set themselves up to match a bid on Kako by trading out of their first round pick, so he seems certain to end up there. There's been talk of a bid inside the top 10, but more realistically it seems likely to come somewhere in the 10 to 15 range. Ollie Hannaford. Hannaford was quietly impressive early in the season playing as a small defender, where he showed his versatility to lock down on an opponent and rebound effectively, a role he also played for Vic Country at the Champs. Things changed dramatically for Ollie in the second half of the season once he was given a chance to play in the forward line. He became the draft bolter of this pool, kicking bags of goals and dominating games as his Rebels team surged towards the finals, making a deep run. Hannaford saved his best for last, dominating the grand final as a midfielder, even as his team ultimately failed to get the win. His late emergence meant that he had to be content with only a state combine invite, but there he produced an outstanding agility test time to underscore his potential. So how does he play? Well, the two halves of his season show his versatility as a small defender or as a prolific goal-kicking forward, and his brilliant grand final performance in the midfield hints at potentially more to come. He's an elite competitor, throwing himself into tackles and pressure acts with intensity. His athletic profile is outstanding, with pace, power and agility in spades, although his poor 2-kilometre time trial suggests that he has some work to do on his tank if his long-term future really is in the midfield. As a forward, he demonstrated an ability to kick a variety of goals, from ground level, snaps from the pocket, and perhaps most impressively an ability to win 1v1 tests of strength in aerial contests. He knows how to use his body and relishes opportunities to do it. On the downside, he still feels a bit raw at this stage and lacks some of the slick polish of other small forward prospects. It can be a bit straight lines bash and crash at times. If he is picked in the first round, it will be on the back of his late season performances, which makes him a little riskier as a pick given it was a relatively brief patch of form. Draft prospects, well, I'm more bullish on Hannaford than I've seen others being, but I believe in time this ranking will be justified. I think anything later than a pick in the 20s would be a mistake. Toby Travalia. An interesting season from Toby, who started the year in his customary medium-sized interceptor rebounding defender role, but was pushed up into the midfield for the Pioneers, where he had some strong games, but the change of role exposed some of his limitations and perhaps didn't work to his strengths. His best and most consistent form came in his non-Pioneers games when he was playing as a defender. 2 strong performances for the Academy and an excellent Champ Series for Country and a sequence of solid performances in the VFL for Carlton. To call Travalia an intense competitor would be an understatement. He has a case of white line fever far worse than anyone else in this draft pool. When he's playing in his best role as a defender, this competitive intensity allows him to continually win contests or intercept the footy with reckless attacks on the football and or the man. He's consistently been the best interceptor in the draft pool across all levels this season. He reacts to the unfolding play quicker than anybody else and commits fully to every action he takes. He's capable as a rebounder, confident to leave his man and attack with dash, regularly getting involved in possession chains. His disposal is okay, but not elite. He can be a little bit unco at times, and he's typically not very subtle. His default seems to be to blast the ball as far as he can to a contest down the line. When playing as a midfielder, his competitive intensity is a powerful weapon defensively, but he lacks stoppage craft and is too often caught flat-footed, which leads to a lot of scrappy and contested play. On draft day, a very different type to the others before him on this list, which could play in his favour. A team that's after a committed and competitive defender could pounce early. Top 10 would be slightly surprising, but not completely. Alex Tauru. Tauru, the Flying Viking, started to emerge as a genuine draft contender mid-season after some impressive highlight marks and a late call-up to the Vic Country squad. He quickly became known as the premier aerialist in the pool, impressing initially as a defender, but then as the season progressed showing his ability to impact as a forward, kicking a number of goals late in the season as the Power made a nice little finals run. So how does he play? Well, Tauru marks the football. That's his outstanding skill. But it's also the most difficult and valuable skill in footy, which makes it no surprise that he's surged up the draft rankings throughout the season. He's not the tallest, but he has an excellent springy leap, and he throws himself at marking contests with reckless abandon and disregard for his own health and safety, and clunks the ball with safe and clean hands. His ability to get into position to take so many contested marks is a testament to his footy IQ and positional knowledge and reading of the play. Outside of his marking ability, he has a few issues to work on. His kicking can be variable, with a fairly slow ball drop, which tends to give opponents that extra bit of time to read his intentions and leads to more of his disposals being intercepted than you would like. He's okay below his knees, but not outstanding. Draft prospects. Well, if the rumour mill is to be believed, Tauru could be heading to North Melbourne as high as pick 2. This feels like a significant overpay to me, but they need to improve their tall stocks, and Tauru is the best of them in this draft. He has the potential to become the next Jeremy Howe, and I imagine North would be very happy with that outcome. Beau Allen. Allen has been playing predominantly at senior waffle level this season for Peel as a medium-sized lockdown defender. He popped up for one early season Colts game in the midfield, perhaps as a prep for the Champs, where he also played midfield for WA and turned in a solid series of games. Towards the end of the waffle season, Peel started shifting Allen more into the midfield, which also gave him a chance to showcase what he's capable of in there against men. Beau Allen is all about physicality. He's a powerful beast who bashes and crashes forward in straight lines, taking no prisoners and leaving chaos in his wake. He combines a large, powerful frame with enough pace and agility to make himself a real weapon in contested situations. When everything works out for him, he's capable of pulling off impressive passages of play, breaking open contests and dashing clear to power his team forward. He's a strong defensive presence with long, powerful limbs, capable of wrapping an opponent up in a big tackle or laying a heavy bump. At the moment, he's still extremely raw, more of a see ball, get ball type of operator. More often than not, when he bashes forwards at a contest, he doesn't take the ball with him. His footy IQ is a little limited, and he's not always a great reader of the play, which can lead to low possession games and stretches within games where he seems to go missing. On draft day, another of these prospects that has a wide potential draft range depending on which teams appreciate and desire the things that Allen does well. Given that he's a WA lad, there's every chance that he'll come into play at pick 12 for West Coast or at pick 14 for Freo if he hasn't been taken earlier than that. Sam Marshall. Sam has put together a consistently excellent season with some real highlights along the way, ultimately helping his Dragons team to yet another flag on a grand final day where Marshall dominated, being named best on ground. He also had a fantastic champ series for the Allies, playing a more central role in their midfield and showing how dominant he can be in there. Marshall is a smooth moving and damaging outside midfield accumulator. He's shown an ability to win contested footy, but to my mind he looks his best when he's out in space, using his elite endurance and footy IQ to be in the right spot at the right time and working the angles. The big improvement in this game this season compared to last has been his ability to more consistently and effectively bite off more damaging options and translate his possession into scoring chains or kicking goals himself. On draft day, I suspect that Marshall will slide a little given he's an academy kid that some teams will overlook. He's definitely going to end up at the Lions, no doubt. With Levi Ashcroft and Sam Marshall, the Lions are adding two outstanding talents to an already stacked team. Alright, time for the second section. From here, as I mentioned, rather than going strict rankings, I'm going to instead break these players up into positional types and give a rough ranking for them, as I believe, outside of round 1, that teams tend to draft more for positional needs, and the difference in talent level between most of the picks from sort of 20 to 40 in this draft isn't quite as significant. Let's start off with the tall forwards. There are a bunch of them at a similar talent level, I believe, all with some elite traits, and paired with, to my mind, some significant deficiencies. First up, Harry Armstrong. I know many have him a lot higher than this, but I'm concerned about his struggles with marking the footy through contact. I feel as though he's very linear, a lead mark type that might struggle if teams are willing to effectively game plan against him, although his elite set shot conversion does mean that he'll always capitalise on the opportunities that he gets. Number 2, Job Shanahan. Again, others will likely have him much higher than I do. For me, I feel like he can float along in games too much and often doesn't have the mongrel and level of competitiveness in him that a big key forward needs. However, he's a smooth mover with athletic traits, clean hands, who could end up a star if he can put it all together. His fantastic 3-game run at VFL level is extremely encouraging. Jack Whitlock, number 3. When he's able to put it all together, he can be close to unstoppable with that long, wiry frame, able to leap up and take grabs at a point higher than almost all defenders can reach. Unfortunately, he too often struggles to hold on to those marks. Not a super athlete, but moves around the ground pretty well, and seems to have a solid tank for a guy his size. Jonty Fall, number 4. Entered the season as the top key forward prospect, but struggled to manage a back injury, and he's never looked like he's moved as freely as he did last year. Still put together some nice performances in the back half of the season. If he can overcome the back injury, a team could draft themselves a bargain here. A fantastic scrappy competitor who's great below his knees and applies strong defensive pressure, but his kicking can be variable. Number 5, Cale Gerine. He's put together some incredible performance in the Waffle Colts competition, but largely as a roaming ruck come midfielder. He's rarely played as a proper key forward outside of brief resting stints in the Waffle Colts. He did play there more at the Champs, but wasn't quite as impressive as I'd hoped. Would have loved to see him a little more at senior Waffle level, but the 2 games he did play there were heavily rain affected. Heaps of upside here if he can adapt to the big key forward role. Huge frame, capable of taking a mark, classy skills on either foot, light on his feet for such a big man. Number 6, Thomas Sims. Tends to run very hot and cold. When he's on, he's a similar type to Jack Whitlock as a super long marking target that presents really well at the ball and can take a grab at a high point that few can reach. But he's had some extremely quiet games this year, and even within games he tends to do his damage in spurts. A couple of late round / rookie possibilities, Gabriel Stumpf and Charlie Nichols. Next group up, small and medium forwards. It's a pretty deep draft for small forwards in the end, with plenty of different types to choose from. Number 1, Joe Berry. After a stellar first half of the year, I felt that Joe struggled in the second half post-champs when he was moved further up the ground. He struggled to impact as a midfielder, and it also seemed to put him off his forward game as the goals dried right up. In saying that, he still has some elite traits, with evasiveness and foot skills, and his early season form was fantastic. Number 2, Cooper Hines. Definitely more the medium forward than small. Hines played well through the midfield this year, but the forward line appears to be where his future lies. He's not a high-marking aficionado, but combines lead mark craft with clean ground-level work in a dangerous package, and has consistently hit the scoreboard all year. Number 3, Jesse Detoli. An exciting talent capable of impacting the contest in a number of ways. He's got some power in his frame and a low centre of gravity which helps him compete well in the midfield. In the forward line, his evasiveness, poise and creativity with the footy allow him to create scoring opportunities for himself and his teammates. Number 4, Hamish Davis. An exciting mix of endurance and speed with the ability to produce moments of magic as well as a nice size for a wing / flank / forward. Can take a grab in the forward line and possesses craft to impact in there. Has kicked plenty of goals at all levels, including an excellent burst of waffle form late in the season for Claremont. Would be picked higher, but unfortunately he possesses what seems to be a pretty broken kicking action which makes every disposal a bit of an adventure. If that can be resolved, he could be a star. Number 5, Cody Angove. A hard-working forward or wing with a touch of magic in his game, Cody has the running power to work up to the wings and then get dangerous in transition ball movement chains, often putting the classy finishing touch on with a pass onto a forward's chest or a running shot at goal himself. Number 6, Malachi Champion. Will end up at the Eagles as an NGA pick and so may slide a little from where he might otherwise have been taken. Malachi had a better season last year than this one, but everyone is still well aware of the talent he possesses. He's a protagonist out on the field who loves to make things happen and get involved with the niggle. Tiny in stature but super speedy with plenty of class and capable of snagging a goal from nowhere. There are a bunch of later / rookie picks for the small and medium forward prospects. We have Jasper Alga, Josh Dolan, Will Hayes, Reece Unwin, Josh Murphy and Evan Bradley, names to keep an eye on. Time to look at the key defenders. First up, Matt Whitlock. I've included Matt here as a defender rather than a forward, otherwise the key defender list starts to look a little bit thin. He started the season playing in defence and showed excellent instincts and competitive drive. Capable of winning 1v1s and, by my estimation, significantly better than his brother at ground level. He transitioned to play more forward in the back half of the season and demonstrated his versatility by kicking plenty of goals. Number 2, Harry O'Farrell. Bit of a strange season for O'Farrell, who played a lot more school footy and missed Talent League and Champs games with injury, which has left people like myself with scant few opportunities to see him in action. He's got nice athletic traits, is strong in the air and capable of impacting the game at either end of the field, but more known for his defensive craft, where he's shown that he can lock down on a man and be disruptive. Number 3, James Barrett. He's played well at either end this season, but seems more confident and comfortable as a defender with a task to lock down on the opposition's most dangerous forward. Even though he's undersized for a key back, he's powerful in the air and capable of winning 1v1 aerial battles. Likes to get involved rebounding out of defence, but his rather iffy kicking skills can sometimes be a pain point. Number 4, Adrian Cole. Linked to St Kilda via NGA and could be capable of filling the gap left by the departing Josh Battle there, Cole is a dour and disciplined tall defender with strong craft. Number 5, Noah Mraz. A young man with a solid reputation entering the season who unfortunately suffered a foot fracture that ended his season early. He's tall, quick, strong in the air and combative, so there's plenty to like there for a team willing to take a chance on him late. Small and medium defenders. Number 1, Harry Oliver. Strong, combative, brave and defence first focused. Strong at ground level and in the air, takes the risk to run off his man less than others in this group, but when he does he's damaging with penetrating and accurate foot skills. Number 2, Angus Clark. Versatile medium defender who can play on all comers except perhaps for the ultra tall forwards. Brave and combative, extremely strong in the air, and quick to close and get a spoiling fist in. Damaging with his attacking rebound from defence, solid and creative kicking skills, and a good decision maker who takes what the opposition gives him. Number 3, Lockie Jakes. Another versatile defender capable of playing on smalls and medium thanks to his aerial strength. Strong reader of the play who will zone off his man to intercept the ball. A more aggressive attacking rebounder than the previous two in this category, he finds plenty of the footy in transition but can get a bit loose defensively at times. Number 4, Zach Johnson. Could honestly fit into any category really given how many roles he's played this year, but it was as an intercepting defender for Northern where I felt he played his best. Classy mover and user of the footy, nice size and a strong presence in the air. Finds plenty of the ball, but doesn't always present as the most intense competitor on the field. A late December birthday, so plenty of scope for growth in his game. Potential late pick, Jaden Nguyen. He's an NGA prospect for Essendon, quick and combative small defender. Played better last season but came on strong towards the end of this year when given opportunities through the middle and forward line. Posted a blistering time in the 20-metre sprint. Ruckman. Not a lot to speak of in this category. We have Alex Dodson, returned from the basketball track to rededicate himself to footy just in time for the champs and showed enough to get people excited. Athletic and very capable at ground level, competing hard post-tap. Clunked a number of big marks in Game 1 for South Australia at the champs, but then struggled with that aspect of the game afterwards. Late round pick, Logan Smith, the academy prospect for GWS. And finally, midfield. Plenty of midfielders as always. First up, Christian Moraes. A powerful runner and prolific possession winner capable of playing multiple roles out on the footy field. Started the season as a top 10 fancy but has faded on the back of concerns about his disposal by foot and decision making. But if he's able to work through those deficiencies, there's a ton of talent there. Number 2, Tom Gross. Destined to become a fan favourite for whichever team is lucky enough to draft him. Super versatile, brave, determined and combative in his approach with an elite work rate. Strong overhead with a burst of speed. Could adapt to thrive in any of the small roles. Number 3, Jacko. His conversion from winger into prolific on-baller in the second half of the season played a large role in transforming the Rebels' fortunes and helping them go on a streak of hot form all the way to the grand final where they ultimately fell just short. Tall and rangy for the midfield, but light on his feet and evasive for his size. O plays conservatively with his decision-making, but his IQ and work rate allows him to get from contest to contest. Number 4, Ben Camporeale. Could be ranked higher than this in all honesty. He's an extremely effective inside midfielder that will be headed to Carlton alongside his twin brother Lucas. Especially prolific at stoppage, and able to move well in traffic to find space for a clean disposal. Excellent by hand, but poor by foot, with a kicking action that produces variable results. Number 5, Cody Anderson. The beast from the east, Cody is a fantastic athlete and plays with a physical edge matched by very few in this draft pool. He's able to find plenty of the ball and applies excellent defensive pressure, but his kicking skills often tend to let him down. There's a host of late midfield options. Luke Urquhart, Nathaniel Salzberger, Luca Grego, Phoenix Hargrave, Patrick Rechko, Xavier Ivasic. So that's it. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks so much for watching and for your patience with such a long one. I'd love to chat with you about your thoughts on this draft pool in the comments. Thanks to everyone for their support over season 2024. It's been an absolute privilege to provide you with vision of what I'm confident will end up being seen as a real bumper draft pool. Good luck to you and your team on draft day. I'm sure you'll hear from me again soon.